Hello, fellow plant people. Welcome back if you are returning to my channel, but if you have just found me here on YouTube, my name is Jen and I go by the Leafy Geek here and also on the Instagram. And I wanted to share with you some news and updates about some of my favorite plants in my collection. If you have followed me for a little while on here, you know that I have quite a few jungle cacti, epiphytic cacti in my collection, in my general plant collection. I think right now I have right around 25 different species of epiphytic cacti. And I'm going to make sure that if you'd like to kind of review some other videos that I've done on epiphytic cacti, I will make sure those are up in the cards. I have a whole playlist on them. It's an area of botany, of like the whole kingdom Plantae, that I really enjoy, and I like learning about them. They're just weird and interesting plants. But tonight I thought I would just do a quick update on how things are going with them. It's been a while, I think, since my last update. I want to kind of give you the sense of how things are going in general, and I also want to share with you my 5 favorites so far. Just plants that have really kind of been cool, have grown well, have done well, and that I just really enjoy every time I kind of catch a glimpse of them as I'm going about my daily life in my house. So that's what this video is. Let's take a look at some jungle cacti. So probably the biggest change to my collection as a whole is their location. I had them kind of bouncing around over the course of the last year, just trying to get my bearings with them, where they would fit. Some of them are getting a little bit large, which I guess is a good problem to have, but also it's a space issue and just kind of a general happiness issue for them, I think. I had them, so let me back up a little bit. This is my living room, and this is a north-facing window, but I do have a pretty powerful grow light in this space. And for the winter, I used to have a lot of begonias on this setup here, but for the winter, I've kind of shifted gears with those plants and got them into my plastic greenhouse to kind of try and preserve some humidity for them this winter. Obviously, that's going to be impacted greatly, my general household humidity, by my humidifiers once I get those up and running and cleaned. But for now, I thought just because I was moving those plants, the begonias, to a greenhouse setting, this would be a perfect space for my jungle cacti to kind of adjust and hang out. Because to be honest, they weren't doing well where they were as a whole. They were in my bedroom in a west-facing window. I didn't really have, in spite of it being a west-facing window, didn't have kind of a great supplemental light setup in there yet for them, or that would accommodate them. And the humidity wasn't awesome for them either. I think jungle cacti really benefit from a boost in humidity levels across the board. They are tropical plants, so that makes sense. Any plant, that's durable, like Hoya here, they will always benefit from extra humidity if they can get it. And jungle cacti are very similar in that respect. So I moved them here. And actually, under this grow light, I've got some pretty amazing growth happening, which is really exciting to see. Some of these are going to look a little bit weird because it is watering time for them, so they maybe look a little bit thirsty. And then a few of them are just kind of, oh, look at all these aerial roots. This guy is going a little nuts. But overall, things are going well in this space. I've got some new growth on quite a few of them. This guy's fruiting. That's pretty cool. That's when you know they're happy. And yeah, overall, there's just a good sense of growth. And I've always found that jungle cacti are very easygoing in that they just want kind of good drainage, regular watering, which I do like once a week to once every week and a half. and humidity. Like if you can give them a little humidity boost, that's great. They will love it. They don't necessarily need it, but they will obviously, you know, that's kind of more of an optimal condition for them. So they will thrive if you can give them those three things. So yeah, it's been kind of a stable road with these in a lot of respects. I did lose a couple, and then there were a few that I ended up having to try and save and do some propagation with, which I will show you now. I can just show you this guy. So this was a propagation I had to do of my Epiphyllum hookeri. This was due to, I believe, some pests. This guy got scale kind of around the base of it, and the leaves looked fine, so I basically treated these appendages and then took propagations and rooted the little branches here, and they're doing great. So just some general kind of preservation and just some general assistance for these plants to kind of keep them healthy. We've been playing a little bit of catch up just due to them not being in the best location for a little while in my bedroom. But overall, things are good. So just a quick recap of what the heck a jungle cactus is and where it kind of falls into the taxonomical scope of things. The family Cactaceae. Cactus. It's huge. So many twists and turns and branches on that plant family tree. There's a subfamily in Cactaceae, which is Cactoideae, and then there are multiple tribes within that subfamily where these little dangly-doos fall into. So that's where you have like Rhipsalidae for Rhipsalis. You've got Hylocereae, which has a number of different genera of other epiphytic cacti, the epiphyllums, the Selenocereus. So there's a whole kind of map of where these guys end up in the taxonomic order of things. Generally speaking, for my purposes, I have specimens from two different tribes within that subfamily Cactoideae. So my plants land in the Rhipsalidae tribe and the Hylocereae tribe within that subfamily. And so Rhipsalidae obviously is Rhipsalis. Quite a few specimens. I'd say the bulk of my collection are from within that tribe. I do have a few other specimens that land in like the Epiphyllum genus or the Selenocereus genus, which are in Hylocereae in that tribe. So it's kind of a branch. Basically, they're cousins, I guess you could say. Getting into, you know, the taxonomy part of it has been really fun for me because this particular group of plants just seems to be constantly changing, and things are getting recategorized and moved around, and it's just been really fun to learn about them, and I want to continue to learn about them. A couple more facts about jungle cacti, just to kind of review that information, is that the vast majority of species, genera, etc., are found in the New World. So we're talking Mexico, we're talking Central and South America. A lot of those specimens too, or a lot of those species are endemic, which means that they are concentrated in one particular region or area, and that is where they are found. That is the only place they are found on the planet. So because South America, specifically Brazil, a lot of species are found in Brazil. So because Brazil has such an incredible biodiversity, it yields a ton of species, and it's the ideal climate environment, that jungle rainforest type environment, with plenty of trees and rocks for them to do their epiphytic thing. They are basically living on a surface as opposed to in the soil. They are quite specifically located, most of them in the New World, in tropical areas. There's one major exception that I actually have in my collection, that it's a species of Ripsalis that is actually found in Africa, so in the Old World, and it's the only one of its kind that is found in the Old World. So I have, kind of surrounding me here, 5 different specimens of jungle cactus that are currently my favorites. I'll play favorites, I'm going to be honest. There are some, you know, just in any collection, there are some pieces that just bring you a little bit more joy when you look at them than perhaps some of the others. It's not bad, it's just what it is. You look at it and feel happier. So I have 5 examples here, 5 specimens that I want to share with you and talk a little bit about why I like them so much right now. So the first one is, it's not super impressive to look at right now, just because of its size, but I had to put it on the list. As I was walking around just kind of looking at my collection, I realized that in spite of the unimpressive growth that this thing has demonstrated over the course of the past year or so, it has demonstrated some. And I would say out of, you know, most of my Ripsalis, I don't necessarily think that this has been in the best conditions. I think this wants a lot of humidity, from what I've read about it. I think that it, you know, benefits too from a little bit more sunlight. Some of these Ripsalis, oh, did I even say the name of this one? Ripsalis paradoxa. This guy is found in Brazil. And I really do think it likes a little bit more light than some of my other Ripsalis, and it likes a little bit more humidity. And I just haven't really honored its wishes in that respect. In spite of that, it has put on new growth. So I think I added this to the list, A, because it was a wish list Ripsalis for me. I had been hunting for this one for a while, and when I got it, I know that it was quite small. I mean, these are new. These grew in my care. These little nobbins, the end ones, I think on pretty much all of them. They were just little sticks when I unboxed them. I think I have a video about this and my reaction to how unimpressive it was. But in spite of all that, I do like this one a lot. It's shown tenacity. It's been willing to survive in less than ideal conditions. I am continuing to learn with this plant, so it's provided me that opportunity. And I'd be interested to see kind of if I can get it going a little bit more. So I'm not giving up on it. And I really do like this plant, and I would love to see it grow and eventually thrive. So this next one is kind of I don't know if I can even get this on the full screen here. This is Ripsalis ewaldiana. And this one is from Brazil as well. Something I have noticed about these Ripsalis, as opposed to their cousins that are kind of more flat-leafed or broad-leafed, like Epiphytum, is that they are a lot more tolerant and forgiving of less than ideal conditions. They may not grow a ton, but they definitely don't react as poorly to like an absence of water, for example, or just kind of less than ideal light conditions. I've noticed less of an effect on them. And as you can see with this one, it's actually grown quite a bit and has put out some aerial roots. And it does that to kind of seek out and then anchor itself to additional surfaces. So that's kind of neat. So ewaldiana, as I mentioned, is a Brazilian species, and it has these just really interesting kind of stemmy stalks with the aerial roots coming out. There's a lot of roots on this thing. That's incredible. And so all of these kind of offshoots are new. When I had gotten the plant, it was, quite a bit smaller. So for that reason, this one has made the list, and it's just pretty spectacular looking. This is a 4-inch terracotta pot This is, I think, where it has lived since I've owned it. And it's just kind of like, yep, this is where I am. This is where I want to be. I'm cool. You're cool. I'm cool. It's a great plant. I would recommend if you can find a Newaldiana. They're really fun. They're fast growing. They are easy care, as I mentioned, just due to kind of the succulence and the nature of their leaves. They're just a little bit, I think, easier to kind of maintain. They don't need as much humidity. Yeah, just an all-around great specimen. Okay, so I wanted to quick show you this adorable pot. I picked this up at a craft sale last weekend, and just in time to repot this little guy. I'm going to turn it around so you can kind of get the full effect, but I just wanted to show you the pot first, because once I turn it around, you're just going to be looking at the plant. So this is one of my favorites, definitely, consistently throughout my history of owning and cultivating and caring for Ripsalis. This one is delightful. It's just the weirdest looking weirdo you've ever seen. Looks like something that grows under the sea, or maybe on another planet. It's so cool. So this one is Ripsalis sp. So this is a species it basically isn't fully named or recognized. So it's a sp, or a species sp, sp. And the rest of its name, it's assigned a number and a region or location. So this full name of this guy right now currently is Ripsalis sp. Venezuela, DJC, Estado Aragua, SEL 78-0673. That's what it's called. Estado Aragua is a region in Venezuela. So I think just deducing from the name that is potentially where it's endemic to. That's where you can find this guy. And it doesn't frond out. I have never seen this thing produce any aerial roots or anything like that. This is what the plant looks like. So you can see like there are nodes where these segments come together, and from that point, if it is so inclined, it will branch out. It can do this, this double branch here, or it can even do like several off of one little node space, or one little point where the segments meet. So this one has like 3 or 4 here. But this plant, I have kind of an interesting history with. This is actually mostly a new plant. These right here, these little 3 or 4 little segments here in the back, are rooted cuttings that I took from my old plant, because the old plant at some point mysteriously started to dry up and die back. So I ended up taking some insurance cuttings, which I'm thankful that I did. So I had those rooting for a while because I hadn't seen this species come back in stock from the seller that I purchased it from, and I'd never seen it anywhere else. So I did that. I was getting ready to kind of pot up my small little cuttings that had successfully rooted, and then it came back in stock. I checked the website and saw it was available. So I went ahead and ordered one. And so now I have kind of a more, I wouldn't call this bushy. It's not a bushy plant, but it's thicker, it's fuller, but it's just such a cool one. I love this one so much. I think this one does benefit from a little bit higher humidity. I noticed that it is sensitive to getting kind of this, it's almost like a crust, but it's essentially patches of the surface of the plant, like the surface cells of the plant stem drying out. So I think humidity does combat that quite a bit. But yeah, this is Ripsalis sp. Venezuela. I will abbreviate it. I'll just call it Estado Aragua. Lifting pots is hard work, but I will do it. So this one is kind of that unique one that I was referring to a little bit earlier on in the video. This is Ripsalis bassifera subspecies horrida. And this is the Ripsalis that is found in the Old World. So this is found on the island of Madagascar. And it is, you can see, noticeably fuzzy. It's a little bit hardier to kind of desert-like conditions as opposed to some of the other more jungly varieties that appreciate that tropical humidity environment. So this one, it's unique in that sense that I think it tolerates a little bit stronger direct sun and drought conditions. It does withstand a little bit better, but it's a really unique one. I call this my hairy nightmare tarantula plant, and it's so awesome. I think it's the coolest thing ever, and it does this forking. As you can see, it shoots out these longer tendrils and then forks. So that's where I'm hoping we'll end up someday, is just all of these kind of drapey tentacles that have these forks. As you can see, this one, it flowered, and so now it has produced fruit. That's the other thing that's kind of neat with Rhipsalis, is that they do produce fruit that is edible, believe it or not. Should I? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna eat this fruit on camera. Yeah, very sweet. It's very, very sweet. It's kind of a gentle flavor, but it's very, very sweet. It's not tart. I always kind of I'm like, well, fruit should be tart. It's not. It's just this very gentle, sweet flavor. It's very pleasant, actually. That's really cool. All right, so this last one, I'm cheating, you guys. This is not something that has grown this much in my care. I have a smaller version of what I think is the same plant. I didn't realize it at the time. I also didn't realize that this specimen was going to arrive to me this large. It's quite a large specimen, but this is Selenocereus chrysocardium. This is a plant that it's a perfect example of the fluidity and the changes that have happened within the different tribes of this family of plants, because this used to be an epiphyllum. This was classified under epiphyllum as Epiphyllum chrysocardium. So that was its original kind of taxonomical place. It since got moved over to the Selenocereus genus, so that is where that lives. It's also known as the fernleaf cactus. I think it's also referred to as the shark-tooth cactus, if I am not mistaken. This one, it's not in the greatest condition. I think with these appendages, it's kind of hard in transit to keep them all in place and whole. So it did arrive, the ends are a little bit damaged, just not kind of the greatest condition of sort of the ends of the leaves, but it is producing some new growth there. And then I think also up on top here, there's some new stuff happening. So these are usually sent as cuttings. So they cut off the arm of the plant or the stalk. And a lot of times with jungle cacti, they are very quick rooting. And so a lot of times you can just put them into soil, whatever your grow medium is. But I have often done it with just soil, where I just stick them into the soil and then, water it as per usual. And then every once in a while, maybe a couple of weeks later, I kind of gently tug, and if there's resistance, it's rooted. I think these broader leafed varieties, though, are a little bit harder, or they just require a little bit more attention when you're rooting them or propagating them, because they do have a tendency to rot. So you really want to make sure, if you do end up rooting them, that you have some sort of rooting hormone or powder that you can put onto them, so that it basically prevents, weird stuff from getting up into the cutting and compromising it and causing it to rot. So, and always let them callus over. That's another thing to kind of mention. If you're propagating any jungle cactus, really, you want to make sure that you let the ends callus over before you plop them into the grow medium that you're going to use. So this guy is endemic to southern Mexico, the state of Chiapas, and it is a pretty impressive specimen here. I mean, just in general, it's got a lot of presence as a house plant. So I'm lucky to have this one. I do have a smaller variety that I had gotten from another vendor, two different sellers. And that, because that one is so much smaller, if I can kind of track down my information on it and make sure that it is the same variety, then I might just plop it into this guy and just make one big plant, because that's what makes sense to me. So yeah, let's talk about care. Those were my 5 favorites, but basically with jungle cacti, I have all of mine in soil. I've never tried growing them in any other medium. I don't really use leca at all, or pon, or anything like that. Just a basic, well-draining soil. So I utilize compost, orchid bark, and perlite in my well-draining mix. I kind of err on the side of orchid bark, and so just really kind of that fluffy, barky soil that is going to help them kind of replicate what their, natural environment is, which is basically the side of a tree. I tend to water, I'd say once a week is a fairly good rule. I kind of align their watering schedule with my Hoya, because epiphytic plants kind of tend to need the same degree of watering. And well-draining soil, or well-draining grow medium. Once a week is a pretty safe bet in the summer. I tend to kind of scale that back a little bit in the winter. They grow fairly easily under this aspect grow light, coupled with some supplemental light on the shelves, and then the north-facing window, the natural light that they get from there. So that seems to be doing well for them right now. Then high humidity, I think. I like to have my house at probably around 60% humidity on a regular basis. It's just how I am comfortable. And so now that winter is here, I'm going to be busting out the humidifiers to make sure that they have at least some chance of getting humidity, so they don't dry completely out, because that's where you start to see that crust form. And they tend to dry out from the roots and up. So if you ever see that, you see the base of your jungle cactus start to get that crusty, dried out look. You might want to check humidity, but you also might want to just check your watering too, because they can be affected that way if their roots rot. That's where you start to see the signs of the plant starting to die off, and it'll die off up the stalk and up the stem. That is it, everybody, jungle cacti. So I hope you had a good time with me taking a look at these little weirdos, and until next time, enjoy your plants.